Alright, let us begin. It is the time. The time has come once again for me to start streaming. That my preview on YouTube looks dangerously like a black square. Okay, it's fixed itself. Good. So with that fantastic news, let me just hit go live on Entropy, which I've done. Let me cause an echo so I can know if I can hear myself. Square. Yes. It works. Good. So with that fantastic... Oh, also, it sounds like it's coming through the proper mic, which I did not test before starting. As a professional streamer, you know, I have to ensure absolute bestest quality, and that's why I didn't check that. Man, I really should at some point think about things, maybe expand the to-do. Anyway, well, I've not got my co-host once again today, which is well, unfortunate slightly, but I'll take the opportunity to talk to myself, you know, calmly, like a normal person would. So, I've got an idea for tonight. The idea for tonight is to grab a doodle I've posted recently to a server and try and turn it into a shaded drawing. Now, the problem with that doodle, which I'm gonna show after I manage to, you know, find out how doodle is spelled and locate that folder name, because apparently I've clicked on drawings like an absolute buffoon. So here's the doodle. Now, you might realize the problem with this doodle, it's kind of seems to be pre-dependent on the style. And if you imagine this with like smooth shading, I don't think it's gonna work well at all. But I am kind of tempted to try it, because maybe if I figure out a style for this, I can then, you know, transfer that style over to our city drawing. So, while there's no one here, I'll just ramble. Listen, pronunciation still difficult. I've not gotten a full hang of everything yet. I'm working on it. So basically, I'm just gonna doodle on, try and do this and ramble about random stuff. And if somebody shows up, well, I've got some interesting topics as well, but you know, it's always nicer to do those when there's someone in the chat, and there's currently no one. So if someone appears, you might be in for something a bit more interesting that I've been recently maybe thinking about. Now listen, I know I'm streaming, and therefore to think that I could think is kind of ridiculous, because like surely if I could think, I would do something more important for humanity than streaming on YouTube. But you know what? Sometimes you just want to relax, and today is one of those days. I just want to relax. I just want to hang out, you know, just sketch some stuff out, you know, see how it goes. And just, you know, if... Okay, so anyway, this drawing's inspired by a guy who said he's like moving, I think, and he's transporting his his plants like in an airport basically. So that's where the idea for this sketch was born. It was born from that kind of description, which I found quite amusing. Just the mental image of a guy walking through an airport with, you know, plants sticking out of his pockets and such. So maybe something like this. See, like this blobby hand, which is entirely too small. But the idea is there, alright? We are gonna fix it a bit later, and by a bit later I mean immediately, by embiggening the hand to a larger blob. Now, this doesn't make sense, because the hand is completely incorrect. How are we gonna fix that? Well, thankfully, especially with digital stuff, you get to retry again and again and again, because it is for noobs like me. right? Yeah, something like that. And then for the other, you know, here the thumb could be here, and then you could have the base of the hand like there, and then one finger could be on this side of the flower. You know, could well, that's actually no. It can't be like that, but you know, something similar that looks a bit less horrible. Yeah, something like this, right? The idea is that it's holding the second like flower or whatever the hell this is, like a succulent. That's see, that's something that's pretty nice in terms of those low kind of definition sketches I'm doing, or rather the thick lines and such. You leave a lot to the interpretation of the viewer, so stuff like that you can kind of get away with not defining at that stage. Like some kind of plant, right? And that's basically what your mind sees, and that's what you get from it. But because I've now decided to do a bit more in terms of, you know, up the ante a bit and try and convert it to something a bit more detailed. Nothing crazy, but, you know, define it a bit more. Well, now I've run into problems where I've not actually defined something in the original drawing, and now it's not quite as simple as literally transferring it one-to-one to the new one. Because not necessarily enough. It's not that easy to translate something your brain kind of assumes and translate it to an actual thing your brain will instead see. There's something to it where, you know, you kind of hit the maybe it's got something to do with the uncanny valley effect, where it's kind of close but it isn't, or maybe it's because if your brain actually sees the detail, it, you know, switches into evaluation mode instead of instead of, you know, interpolation mode. So if your brain sees something on the drawing, it goes like, well, yeah, that's this thing, and it looks weird. Whether if you were to see like just a random, you know, blob in the shape of something, you know, you might assume, oh, this is a leaf. But if this was more detailed and had this, like, if this was a thinner line and then it had like a weird shape, and maybe actually this is kind of not bad enough to demonstrate my point, but you know what? It'll only get worse from here. So, yeah, chillin'. Basically, this guy's gonna be holding some flowers, and then he has a sweater, and then I'm gonna try and shade it, and maybe try and figure out a style for shading. Because over time, as you can kind of see with those thick line drawings, if you've ever seen anything I've posted or drawn, I've kind of found myself a style that works for me. I can do it fairly consistently, and it's presentable. I can do it fairly consistently. It's fun to draw, and I think it looks decently unique. It's got its inspirations, you know. Terminal Montage on YouTube, if you'd like to look up a big inspiration for this style. They do like, I think it's actually like one dude. It does, no, there's more than one certainly. This in the credits in the videos. They do like animated parodies of speedruns, I think, and video games more broadly. Where's Hunter when you need him? Yeah, good stuff. You know, if you'd like to see kind of, you can. I think if you go look there, I think you'll see bits of influence, like where some of the influence for my style came from. There's definitely others, but that's like the first one that comes to mind that's kind of obvious. Like the reason why this guy has eyes like this is Terminal Montage does it this way, and I like it a lot, so I just blatantly stole it. Well, to be fair, it's probably not... I doubt he's the first guy to figure that out, like that you can make it. Anyway, right? Point is, is it stolen if you have fun? And the answer is, of course, no. If you've had fun, morality does no longer apply. Which is kind of something I could talk about, maybe. If there was interest. But there's no interest, so I'm never gonna talk about it. Now, how's that for an evil laugh? Okay, so this guy's got to have like a second pocket. And then this is kind of a helper line to figure out like what the shape of the sweater is. It's not actually gonna be there in the final product because I'm not thinking of this as something with a zipper. I'm thinking of it like a full, I think pullover might be the name for this. But then the idea is you would have this be like some kind of flower, some kind of vine or something, and then have more of its like, I don't know, more of those vines basically in different directions. That's kind of my idea for this one. I kind of like it also because it gives you a bit of a sense of like, wow, like what's this weird plant this guy's holding, then I'm now interested in this weird plant. Which, you know what, if there's something I've learned is it's kind of important to make people interested in what you do, because actually it kind of depends. It's like depends on what the goal of you doing something is, right? If you are doing stuff because you'd like to do something and you like the process, for example, like I really like doodling, so I don't even have to show my doodles to anyone for them to be fun, because first of all, I see them, and I am the most important person in the world, as I've certainly established before. But also, the process itself, whatever you call that, it's fun enough to the point where I can just do it and have fun, and I don't feel the need to, to kind of validate myself by handing it over to someone else, basically. So like, yeah, you know what? After I finish something, I'm gonna probably post it. It's not like it gets any particularly great engagement anywhere, and I'm notoriously refusing to do any kind of marketing. So like the marketing, quote unquote, that I've done is basically I stream at the same time every week and I post an announcement before. And that's about it. But then, if you don't follow me on anywhere or are not in the channel I posted in, you're probably not gonna see it. And I am fine with that, frankly, because this is mostly for myself to improve. But it's also, it's like if somebody shows up, that's cool. I'll talk to whoever showed up. And if nobody shows up, that's also fine. I'm gonna just draw for a bit. And then, maybe if the result is cool, I'll post it, maybe I'll share it with someone, or maybe I won't. Point is, it's like you want to ask yourself the question, why, and this is kind of, what, I think I'm just gonna go into the broader things. Broader? That's probably not even a word. More broad things, that I wanted to kind of touch on before, because this really reminds me of an idea I was kind of thinking about. It's like, well, if you are doing something, might be a good idea to think about why you are doing that and then act accordingly. So, for example, if you are doodling like I am doing, you want to think about, well, what do I want to achieve with the doodling? If I want to achieve, if the doodling is for me just a way to, spend some time, practice my English maybe a bit, get better at, drawing, get better at rendering, like that, all of this informs how I'm gonna approach things. So for example, how many iterations I do on a drawing, right? If my goal is to make something particular, I might, I might start, I might be drawing, right? And then I think, okay, this needs to change, so I erase a bit, I replace it with something else, maybe, I draw a phase, I don't like the phase, I redo it, and if I want to achieve a particular drawing I have in my head, I'm gonna repeat this process until it is done, basically, to some standard of quality that I deem acceptable for the task. But if I'm doodling just for myself, or I'm doodling on a stream just to have an excuse to talk to people, well, then I might actually abandon certain ideas. So if I find a drawing particularly boring, or I might completely abandon it despite whatever else. And that's also, first of all, that's fine to do, but second of all, that's all because of the purpose behind what I'm doing. And this is something that absolutely, I think, applies to just basically anything you do in life. It's like you want to think about, why am I doing this? And then act accordingly. So if you are editing a video, for example, which was something I was sending to a friend who kind of asked for advice on video editing, it's like, well, keep in mind, that was kind of the first thing I really wanted to point out to him. It's like, keep in mind what you are doing and why, because it's fairly important for you to understand, especially before you've trained yourself so that your subconsciousness is able to process certain information for you, right? Because after you've achieved a certain level of mastery, or maybe like a certain understanding of what you are doing, you are gonna find out that your brain is capable of kind of doing stuff on its own, kind of like I'm drawing right now. I'm not thinking about it consciously too much. I'm just kind of letting my brain, go through the motions while I talk. So it's important for you to be able to for you to learn. It is important for you to be able to consciously replicate whatever it is you are doing. So, for example, if you edit a video, at first you might edit something, and then, or maybe actually it's even easier for drawings. So to explain with drawings, so imagine you're drawing something and it comes out that it looks great to you. Something happened, you don't know exactly what happened, but this particular set of lines you've drawn, you really like it, right? This character you've designed, it looks great, right? Stuff like that. And you don't necessarily know at that stage where that feeling you've got comes from. And now, for you to learn, it's important for you to use that feeling of, oh, this feels good. Why does it feel good? And then by analyzing, you not only teach your brain, like, say, this is good because, but you also, you learn the language, because you kind of have to explain. So you learn the language of the domain you operate in. You get better at recognizing patterns. You can test anything you come up with, you can test. And in the test, it can come up that you might either know, like, oh yeah, this is good because of that. And then you consciously replicate that aspect, and it comes out good again. And then it's like, well, you've learned something very valuable, because from now on, you can kind of use the thing you've developed like that as a tool. So from now on, you maybe won't have to think of that necessarily consciously, but you will integrate it into how you do things kind of automatically. Consciously also, of course, but, So where did this thought start? Oh yeah, it's important to keep in mind the purpose behind, because you teach yourself all sorts of useful stuff if you do that. And this very much, I think, applies to like anything you ever do. So just, why am I doing this? What can I get out of the situation? And this is a very good way to also kind of handle you know, how to deal with your brain telling you you've maybe wasted time, or maybe something you've done is pretty bad, right? Handling all of that. Hold on, let me just save it because I'm throwing a wrench in my own train of thought by. Yeah, I've totally, absolutely decimated my train of thought. So, what was I thinking about? It's like you want to be able to consciously. Oh yeah, you want to be able to have your brain. If your brain gives you shit, essentially. So, like your brain tells you, oh, something, this thing is bad, you know, and then subsequently, it kind of also comes out as, you know, you are bad because you've done this thing that's bad. You want to be able to deal with that, and I found that this approach is very, very good for that reason, and that is because you can tell your brain, it's like, well, okay, you know, this might have been a waste of time in terms of the product I was able to produce, but, you know, and the but is you kind of barricading your foot in the door and not letting this get to you too hard, because then you turn it into a positive. So it's like, well, you know what? I might not have produced the world's greatest thing. You know, this drawing's pretty bad. I probably don't want to show it too widely. You know, it's not my finest work. But, and then in the but section, you kind of figure out, oh, what have I learned, right? And because, you know, if you've engaged in that kind of conscious analysis of what you've been doing, well, now you've got something to actually talk about here. So you could say, oh well, I've learned that this looks good, or maybe I've learned that this looks bad. Maybe I've learned that, you know, if I do that, it breaks something that was otherwise good. It's like learning all of that stuff lets you in the future make less mistakes, for example. It's generally beneficial. So the point is, essentially, the point is that, you know, you want to be very, very conscious about what you do. And I think, you know, you should generally be in the mode of thinking about stuff, and then only allow yourself to fall to kind of going by the motions if it's something you already know well, or maybe if you want to think about something else in the background. But generally, you know, you wanna make sure your brain is processing stuff, because, you know, without that, stuff becomes the word problematic has been absolutely destroyed for me. But, you know, you otherwise you're gonna run into problems you would have never run into if you simply thought. And this is absolutely speaking from experience, because I've definitely run into those. It's like, you know, it's a kind of feeling of, I can't believe this has happened, right? It's like this was so easily preventable, and I should have prevented it, and yet it still happened. It's like, well, you could beat yourself up over it, and maybe some amount of that is actually necessary, because, well, maybe you did mess up a whole bunch, you know, maybe you did really mess up, but at the end of the day, like, you know, not to kind of interrupt the grieving process, but at the end of the day, being sad or annoyed, or, you know, whatever emotion you have and are engaging with, like that, it's not gonna fix the issue. That's not gonna help you grow, really. That's just gonna, you know, maybe you need to process it emotionally, sure, but, you know, don't let it stop you. And at the end of the day, I think that kind of emotional resilience, another word that I find particularly difficult to pronounce, apparently. You know, at the end of the day, you want to make sure whatever comes in to your life doesn't destroy you, right? So if you, well, if you have emotional resilience, well then, if something horrible happens, right, you might be the calm person in the room, and then you can help people in that drastic, like tragic situation, right? That makes it so you kind of, and that is, you know, that is what I think at least I want to be. I think I'd sincerely recommend to everyone, like this idea that you want to be, you know, you want to better yourself so you can be there for other people when they need you. Is kind of how I'd like to put it. Okay, how's the sketch looking? This sketch is looking pretty darn hot for what I actually expected, which was I didn't actually expect much, frankly. I've kind of started this without really knowing where it's going to go, but because it's gone in a direction that seems continuable, I will continue it. And by continuing it, I mean let's drop this to a very transparent layer and try to add some color to it. So maybe this time what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with establishing a color palette, because I never do that. So the sweater on this guy is like some shade of saturated reddish brown, and I, you know, oh, this might be a good color, something like this, and then, you know, the little pattern on it could be maybe this. Wouldn't be a bad color combination, but it has very little contrast, I feel like. So maybe, what could it be? Maybe darker? That's too dark now. Yes, something like this feels alright. Let's, you know, let's limit this to a more closely to the shape I'm gonna actually be coloring with it, and let's try and, you know, try and maybe figure out if this looks good. You know what, we might adjust these colors later, but for now I feel like this is pretty good. So these are going to be the sweater colors. For skin, you'd probably want to go with something around this. No, that's weird. This is also too orange. Whoops. But the second one is pretty good, I think. Yeah, this looks like a decent skin color for this guy. Now we figure out what we can kind of mix with this, because the brown is pretty nice, I think, because it's gonna mesh well with the plants. But then for the pants, I could try and break it up, like the dark and green with some like khakis or whatever the hell these are called, like pant, no, bright pants could work. First again, well, you are not only the first, but you are also the only person that showed up so far. So welcome. I'm currently figuring pants out, or trousers out. I've definitely been yelled about using one of these words before, or maybe, yeah, I've definitely been yelled at by Hunter for using the word pants with an English accent. He wasn't quite happy. Actually, how is it in the land down under? Do you say pants for trousers, or do you say trousers for trousers? Because I genuinely have no clue. And also, it's a okay. So like these are pants or trousers. Then this is also gonna have like these, but to listen to your drawing stream while I fall asleep. Hold on. Where are you? Because it's 10 p.m. over here, so how could you possibly be falling asleep over there when it's like 5 hours but earlier? I can't pronounce this word. It's impossible. I've just realized I have not started the timer tonight, so oh, nap time. Okay, old man. Come on. No way, you're just going to get a nap in the basically young hours of the day. Right, let's figure out a color for the plant. Probably want to have like a whole palette of shades to later pick from. So like a darker, a brighter, more closer to yellow, even more bright. Like these are very cartoony colors, certainly, but I think I'd like my shading style to be cartoony, so cartoony for now it is. This is, I think, a bit too much though, because actually this might be for the highlights. Yeah, I'm keeping this. I think this is a decent highlight color. And then all of these could be shaded later, like something like that. Yep. Anyway, since there's people here now, which is fantastic, thank you very much for showing up. I could maybe talk about something interesting instead of random waffling on about drawing. Now, I realize that might actually be kind of slightly, a tiny bit counterproductive to anyone falling asleep while listening, but you know what? Too bad. What's one of these topics? You ever just meet someone who doesn't exactly understand what doing something on principle means? Because I just had one of those today. It's interesting. You know, it's yeah. I've definitely, you know, I've basically discovered that I've been coping the whole time about certain things. Weird, I'll be honest. It's very hard to actually explain something like that to someone if they don't get it. It's like how do you explain on principle to someone who seems to not operate with the idea at all. As in, it's like a complete lack of understanding of what it even means to do something on principle. It's like, well, but you will not have any impact. Like, there's not enough impact, right? Like, you are just one dude. This is a massive corporation. Like, nothing's gonna happen if you do that. It's like, well, I mean, sure, but it's on principle. You know, it's a bit of a different idea to that. I don't know. How the hell do you even convince someone like that to, like, how do you explain on principle? It's like, I don't know. Wait, have I been drawing with a wrong brush the whole time? What's up with this? Why are you anti-aliased again? Why? Brother, this shouldn't be messing up my pixels. Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa indeed. Hello. Welcome to a man going mad about pixels slightly changing color after selecting them. Well, apparently, there is a setting to anti-alias selections. There we go. I found it. That was very anticlimactic for the grand speech I was prepared to give while I was looking for... Well... Okay, now the problem is, I found the setting, but apparently it's separate for every selection type. This is the most epic way to solve this. Certainly this is the most epic way to solve it. Okay, now if I move it nicely all together and no pixels get smudged. Awesome. I don't even know why because there's not really is there really no reason? I'm thinking about, because is there even a reason to me keeping anti-aliasing off on a drawing of this resolution, which is this entire canvas is 4K res, so it's like the screen I'm drawing this on is actually like 1/4 of the surface area, and this guy's like definitely larger than that one screen, so it's like very high res, but I still like the pixelated brush. I don't know, is there something about resolving there's something very fun about resolving problems to me. Might be just an absolute boatload of absolute autism on my part, but you know what? Solving problems is fun to me. And not everybody understands that, because when you got a guy who is absolutely willing to spend 2 months sitting by himself solving a problem that is not very conductive towards, for example, playing a game together, like Minecraft. Minecraft is particularly horrible for that because, well, you can absolutely get lost designing stuff for Minecraft, which could be, it could just be a home, but you could make farms, you could get deep into the mechanics, you can try and optimize it, or you could just take on a hard challenge and, then 2 months pass by and your friends are like, dude, are you like coming back to playing the game? And it's like, well, I've been playing the game the whole time, but the problem is I am massively autistic. And so what do? It's I sit in creative and I, inspect tick by tick to find out how to accomplish something. I feel like this is not exactly, it's either, either everybody has a different subject they do this for, or, or maybe not everyone, but like some people maybe don't have this subject at all. Like the subject that you can just get lost in and then, continuously think about or sink time into just because you like whatever it is you're doing in it. That spark kind of starts things because that's the kind of spark I think that started basically every one of my interests. Is like, well, I'd like to do this, and then this spark of interest, and then the feedback kind of you get from your brain while you get better at it is kind of how you teach yourself from the point of, well, I know nothing and everything I try to do falls apart immediately, to, well, I'm mildly competent at this, to, well, I'm very comfortable in this domain. And like, I don't know. I don't know how you would do it without the spark. Like is there life without autism, and what does it look like? I genuinely do not know how this thing operates. I feel like, you know what, a lot of the time I do feel like I'm weird. And then, a lot of the time I get confirmation that I'm weird, which only, solidifies my belief about myself being weird in certain, at least certain fields. Like, well, what can I do about that? Well, that's not even the correct question. The correct question is if I even want to do anything about that. And honestly, I like being weird like this. Like, if me doing stuff is weird to people, then I guess I'll be weird to people. But I certainly won't stop doing stuff. Self-reassurance talk, basically is what that was. I'm trying to convince myself I am not actually mentally insane, which, takes some doing. Now, the problem with that might be that I exist too much inside of my own head, which I've definitely not picked the right job for not being, constantly inside of my own head. Because my job is sitting in my head and thinking about things. And unfortunately, that doesn't quite... That leads to some side effects, let's say, that the general public doesn't appreciate. To put it very, very politely, without any like big insults and such, it's different, right? That's the modern kind of language you want to use. You want to, you don't want to say any kind of, there's a problem. No, there's no problem. Where there might be some difficulty or something, we need to solve it. If there's one thing you absolutely cannot do is, you absolutely cannot call anyone a stupid idiot. And that is even more funny when it applies to people who call themselves stupid idiots all the time, but they definitely don't do it for you to adopt the label. Which is, well, I would be lying if I said that's weird, because like it's not. It's just very human. I feel like it's kind of inevitable, basically, in any space that you will get people like this. Maybe it's also a bit of a sign of the times. It's also a strategy that works, right? So if you have an environment and you solidify that a strategy like that works, as in people who do that will get positive attention, because everybody around, for example, has been made very aware that, oh, you know what, depression or low self-esteem is a serious issue. And then that kind of translates to people basically becoming overprotective of others. And then you've got, well, no. You know, you have to kind of, no. This guy's not thinking wrong, right? There's no problem. You're great. You're doing great. We all love you. It's fantastic. No matter what, because the guy's because the guy's talking something like, "Oh my god, I'm so sad. I'm so bad. Nothing happens." It's like, you know what? At a certain point of just being like that, me personally, I get to the point where I say, well, maybe you are that bad and you should give up. And the thing about saying that to people like that is usually it doesn't even matter, because it's not actually about doing anything, it's about lamenting forever. Which is particularly annoying to deal with, I'll be honest. But on the other hand, if somebody shows up and is willing to listen and implement some of the tips, then I do like giving tips if I can. If somebody shows up to me and wants to draw and get better, and I can provide some kind of feedback that's going to facilitate that, hit me up, fam. I'm down for that. Absolutely. What I'm not down for is you posting your stuff and then being just so sad about life itself that you decide to cry that you are pointless, your existence as well. It's like, get out with that. You know what? Respect yourself before you ask for respect from others. And also, you know what? Also, put in effort. Put in effort, because if there's one thing that I've definitely learned from helping people in a tech support way is, man, it makes it a lot easier, to help you if you've shown that you actually care, which you might think is a low bar, but it's absolutely not. It's like, by show that you care, I mean that, you, for example, take the time to describe the problem you are having accurately. Is that a ridiculous requirement? Well, sometimes it is, because if you say, I get an error, that's not, first of all, that's not very conducive to any kind of solution. So you are basically forcing everyone to ask you questions, to confirm. And I genuinely don't believe you can't think for a couple seconds and figure out that that's not a good way to provide feedback. Maybe you can't, in which case you would be excused, but generally, I think you actually can, and the problem is you've just not been taught how to take time with things. As in, you know what? A lot of people can figure a lot of stuff out, just if after putting in a bit of effort. And I think the problem is we are kind of in times in which putting that little bit of effort in is not very much, it's not very widespread, to say that, to once again say that politely. I don't think it's very widespread to actually do that bit of effort, which in reality means you've actually outsourced a bit of effort to whoever is willing to be on the other side. So, for example, the customer support employee you are currently bothering with your random problem. It's like, well, you know what? It's like you could find this out for yourself. You've got your preferred search engine on the web. You could type the question into the search engine instead of typing it in the chat box. Something chat GPT. And you could get a perfectly good answer that solves the problem. But the problem is, well, what happens if after this grueling task of typing your question into Google, what after this grueling task you end up with a solution that doesn't work exactly as it is specified in the description? Well, you might have to do the absolutely dreadful and unimaginable, honestly, labor of trying a couple solutions. Or maybe, and then over time, as you try these solutions, you will get a sense for what is a good solution and what isn't, and what you probably should try and what you shouldn't. And maybe then you can actually, solve your own problems instead of relying on others to do it. And then maybe that not only saves you time, but it also saves other people's time and generally makes the world a better place. Crazy idea, I know. I should have probably put a disclaimer in the description for the thinking phobic of us, who'd like to enjoy this stream but would not like to engage any part of any kind of brain. Except if it belongs to other people, of course. Because if there's one, somewhat ties into thing given for free has no value, something like that. There's probably an idiom for it, or like some kind of way of saying it that's generally accepted that I don't know, but you know what? If you're willing to do something for free, well, how much value is it gonna have for someone who's actually viewing it? What drawing? Well, I have an original sketch which I could show you if I. Okay, I'm gonna throw this over into a group. Is the original thick line sketch for this, which I've decided, because I'm talking a lot, I've decided I'm gonna do something fairly easy and then turned it into, a thin line sketch, and now I'm trying to paint it a bit and then shade it to kind of practice for later when I'm gonna have to shade a lot of surface area on the city drawing we are doing. So I'm kind of just chilling and talking about live things that I never know, honestly, if. Yes, this is a planned human. This comes from a guy who said he's bringing his plants to I think his new living place, something like that. And he's doing it, by putting them in his suitcase and in his pockets and just going to an airport. Which I found, the mental image of that I found very funny, so I've decided to give it a sketch, and now I'm kind of going further with that idea and turning it into a question mark painting. Maybe this counts, question mark? Anyway. Yeah, and I'm talking about stuff about life that I'm never sure if it is obvious or not. That's the thing about all of this stuff. It's like certain things, because that also relates to how I feel about the value of what I'm talking about. So if I'm talking about something I feel is obvious, then there's this endless trying to battle with the feeling of, well, that I'm not really smart. Like, the pretentiousness is one word for that thing. So, if I talk about something that I think might be obvious to people, it's a bit. First of all, it could be a bit pretentious because, well, it's like, yeah, it's not really that deep. You just, be a good person. And then on the other hand, you could also be running into, well, yeah, everybody knows this. Like, why are you new to this? So that's kind of what's banging around in my head as I say things I feel might actually be obvious slash, understood by the general public. But on the other hand, I keep saying them because I think there's not quite enough actually putting it into words. And even if it's obvious for everybody else, you know what? I am just gonna. I think it strengthens my brain. I think it is useful for anyone who would like to argue this stuff later to have, because you might put it into words in one way, as long as nobody's complaining. Well, I don't think there's enough people in the chat to be complaining particularly hard. But it helps you if you hear the same maybe obvious thing but from a slightly different perspective. That might help you, phrase something a different way to someone else later. It's like if you'd like to explain it to someone who doesn't understand, or maybe if you'd like to have a way of talking about why certain things are, well then a lot of, I think, things like that where you listen to just people, arguing things, putting it a certain way, because we all exist in the same reality, vaguely, that kind of transfers. So like even if I'm very drawn to make a programming analogy. It's like if you interact with different libraries, and libraries are basically bits of code other people have written that you can add to your project. But if you explore, how the stuff in the libraries is done, if you look at how it is connected together, if you look at what you can interact with, in what way, what's the syntax of it, so like how you put it into actual code, you kind of get a sense for how you can do stuff, and then later it can influence how you organize your code, for example. So if you make a library of your own, like how are you gonna make people interact with it? So like, oh, I've seen this cool idea, I can take it and maybe I can combine it with this other cool idea, and I have my own cool idea which is gonna make this whole thing even better. But then if it's kind of a matter of time, because you have a certain lifetime to work with, and that's limited. And if you can outsource spending a bit of your lifetime to other people who have already spent their time figuring something out, well, maybe it's a good idea to join forces, slash just blatantly steal their idea in the interest of keeping more of your lifespan focused on doing actual new important things, as opposed to redoing something that's already been done. Yeah, so that's a very, very long way to say, to present an excuse for myself to be talking, essentially. It's very meta if you think about it. Because, you know what? Who doesn't like meta? Aside from literally everyone on the planet. And of course, this is a reference to Meta being the company that Facebook was Meta, I think, and now Facebook is by Meta. Something like that. But generally, they've decided to just set money on fire, seems like. And they are investing heavily into some weird VR stuff that has like free users. Can't wait to see how that turns out, because surely that's gonna make a lot of money. I mean, it might, for all I know, might be that they bounce back, but you know what? I don't know. Maybe, maybe, just maybe NFTs will bounce back. They really are the future. I can't wait to buy my own PNG, right? It's like, look, I am drawing a PNG image right now, but what you don't know is I could actually also be minting this PNG on the blockchain and selling it. And by selling it, I mean selling a link to it, which is what that is. So sorry, I'm just an old man who doesn't quite understand that stuff. Like, But then also, I don't exactly get buying skins in video games for huge sums of money, so maybe I'm just generally too old. Facebook just turned into Meta. They even changed the logo on the Oculus models to the Meta sign. Yeah, well, they seem to be very invested in that product going well. They've also made it so if you start Facebook, it like says on the bottom, Facebook from Meta, by Meta, something like that. It's like they are really invested in you knowing that yes, this is Meta, and yes, we are doing stuff. No, I still have the one with the old logo. Look, there's a rich person over there. And also, you know, you might want to keep it, and like in 25 to 30 to 50 years, you're gonna have a brilliant product to sell to a museum. Assuming museums still exist by then. I'm secretly rich. Damn. Never told me. Now, I've got, you know what? Here's a thing. I don't quite believe you, so if you are really that rich, you know, I'd like you to place $1,000 into my Zimbabwean bank account right now. You know, just for verification, you know, quickly. Like, surely if you are very rich, that's not a massive problem. But you know what? Are these OCs or fan art? Well, this is just the color. This is just a funny way of making a color palette, and this guy is just a dude. This is what the original sketch looked like. I'll tell the story once again. Oh, also, welcome to the stream, by the way. The story once again is that a dude mentioned that he's bringing his plants. He's like moving, and he has to bring his plants through an airport. Like he's basically bringing them to another place by just having a bunch of plants in his suitcase and pockets. So I've drawn the original sketch as a kind of because the mental image of that just made me smile internally. Let's call it that. And then I've decided to, you know, since I am streaming these days at this hour, I've decided to kind of turn it into rendering practice, and also to kind of turn it into something I can do while talking and doesn't require too much brain power. Because the problem with doodles that I often do is those things I need to be a bit more careful about what I do. Like I need to actually think of a concept, and then after that, because each doodle is done quickly, I kind of, you know, I kind of have to keep it going, and that doesn't quite mesh well with talking. Now, I don't really know how well this meshes with talking, because I don't, you know, I certainly don't have enough brain power to at the same time listen to myself talk and draw. That's three things, and I clearly don't have the mental capacity. You know, three things is a bit out there. Maybe one day, once I achieve a higher grade of streaming prowess, I'll be able to achieve such feats. Pocket plant, yeah, he's got like a little. He's got a little port. Port. It's called a port. Why did I forget that? No clue. And he's got a little bonsai on his head. Why? Because if TF2 taught me anything, it's if you put funny object on head, it equals good cosmetic. Which, you know, if I wanted to talk about something, TF2 and the absolute state of you're doing fine, I got someone to listen to. That the way you phrase that kind of sounds like, you know, I'm doing fine, but you found someone else to to listen to because I was too boring. That's, I mean, that might be what you meant, which would be funny. But anyway, yeah, the absolute state of TF2. What a sad display. Volvo, please fix that situation. What? No, that's what you said. I have no idea what you mean by that. I might have deleted some context from my brain. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out a color for the hat of this guy. Now, could make it, could have the hat have a little pattern, maybe like a checkerboard, or maybe some additional lines. I don't mean it that way. Okay, yeah, gotcha. Because this color doesn't. I don't like it. I don't like the blue. But at the same time, well, I'm kind of liking keeping this guy in like bronzes and beiges, question mark, if that's a thing I can say. I kind of like that because then it lets the colors of the flowers and such shine through. What I might do is I might recolor this to be different, so like maybe towards this kind of purple, something like, or maybe just make it a succulent like I initially thought. So like this is, make this gray. Actually, are there no flowers like this, where you've got like this kind of background, like you've got the leaves and the inside is a different color. I think that's a thing. So maybe I'll do that, have this green, and then we could go full weeaboo, and then to the bonsai apply the good old pink from the like cherry blossom trees, which probably want to disable something like this, right, with the white stuff. That could look cool, maybe. What if you use the stripe shirt color as the hat? I could, because this is gonna be a sweater. That's basically that's the basic idea for that. I could use the darker color of that for the hat, and it doesn't even look that bad. So I might do that. This limits the palette, but I think that's actually not a bad idea to limit the palette for this guy, because the flowers are gonna have a fairly more complex palette when I actually get to shading them. So it might be a good idea to just keep this guy in the bronzes, and this actually does seem to look pretty good. So thank you for that suggestion. I think I'll be keeping it. Maybe later I'll come back to it and throw him a bit of a pattern on this. So maybe, because this is gonna have, I'm basically planning on making this a kind of sweater texture, so like, something like this essentially is gonna be on the sweater to give it a bit of texture. And then on top of that, of course, there's also gonna be shading to actually make the whole surface a bit more interesting. I don't yet know how I'm gonna solve the shading, by the way. That's a problem for future me to figure out. Current timer me is very much enjoying just throwing colors into stuff and seeing if it looks good. Future me is gonna have to be worried about thinking. If I had a time machine, I could maybe ask future me right now, but because I don't, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave the question hanging and just through the natural normal passage of time transport the question to future me, and answer it later. Now the problem is present me is not gonna be available anymore at that time to actually like do any kind of dialogue or like exchange of ideas, but you know what, we'll have to manage somehow. Unfortunately, I don't see myself escaping the linear passage of time anytime soon, so we're gonna keep at it the way it is. Alright, so that, then maybe... Okay, so maybe try and turn this questionable succulent into a full-blown succulent, like the darker shade for... Oh, toggle alpha lock. Darker shade for that, maybe. This is also probably gonna have a bit of a darker shade on these, like that, maybe. It's like some very very basic shading on these. But the idea would be for this to be actually still green. Green, orange for the pot. These colors are very saturated and cartoony. I'm not sure how well that's gonna mesh with shading later, but We'll figure it out. I've also kind of chosen the bright variant of the color instead of midtones, which, actually, speaking of midtones, it reminds me that I should do this, which is making the background a more neutral shade of grey instead of full-blown white, because this is actually going to put the colors into a bit of a better perspective because of stuff I've already talked about, as in the human eye likes to kind of, the human eye and the human brain likes context. And so if the context is bright, then everything dark next to something bright is going to seem darker, and vice versa. So because you can't really stop your brain from doing that, the next bit, I hate it when this does this, the next best thing is to utilize that kind of tendency for good. Or maybe, manage it so it doesn't actually get overwhelming and cause problems. So it's like this kind of bonsai tree idea I've got here. So I'm just gonna add some roots. They for now don't contrast pretty much at all with the hat. I think I'm gonna work this out at the shading stage. Maybe also if there's a bit of a pattern on the hat, it's gonna stand out. The grade's gonna stand out a bit more, especially if I incorporate like some lighter, because I'm thinking of like a light square pattern similar to a hat I actually have at home. I could hopefully do that. And if I do that, it's gonna likely look pretty nice because it's got like some stripes, it's got some lighter and darker. Like this is the baseline dark color, and then I'd probably go to like something maybe not that strong and a bit towards red, but generally something like that for the hat. I love this concept so much. Well, I'm glad you do. I quite like it as well. I've quite liked the original sketch I've stumbled upon, and by stumbled upon I mean I drew it. And now I'm quite liking how this is turning out, but the hard stage is actually still ahead of me, which this is kind of still setting stuff up, and then the real test of what I can do with this is in the shading stage. It's like, can I shade this? Because, well, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem with me shading stuff is especially recently, I've done a lot of doodling of just stuff like you saw the initial sketch. And that is actually a completely different skill set from shading. And so while I've kind of found a style for myself in the sketching department, I'm yet to figure out shading. A way to do like consistently good shading every time. So I'm kind of experimenting with pretty much everything I do, trying to figure out how to get better at it. And you know what? This stage is actually not the hard part. This is just kind of trying to figure out how I want this to look like in general. Speaking of that, I thought this would look decent with a pink tree at the top. What I could also do is I could instead make it an autumn tree, but is that gonna look good? Because I'm thinking this could look a bit uncanny, maybe the way this tree is. Because this is the only kind of different colored. I definitely like this not being brown, but then the top, the pink tree, it kind of, there's no other color like it on the thing, and it creates like a cloud. Don't you work as a website designer? Well, you could say that. I essentially do full stack, so I do a lot of things from designing to actually implementing it to to the server side stuff as well. I do kind of a lot of random stuff. What if you were to put all your color layers in a folder? That's already done. Create a layer above the folder and make the layer a clipping mask. Huh? Why would I do that? Is the idea for that layer to constitute the outline? Or I'm not exactly following, because I can just toggle, I can just lock alpha. The program is Critter, by the way. I can just toggle lock alpha and just draw on whatever I have on the particular layer, right? Oh, this is not the correct layer, but this is. Like, this only draws on this layer, so I'm not sure. Shading, well, I mean, I am planning on using alpha lock extensively for shading. That's why I'm kind of setting up the shape of things right now to later just, alpha lock, and then I disabled it, but, do this quickly, or maybe, do something like that also quickly. We'll figure it out. Well, you learned code, so, well, yep, I did learn code, that's true, but the thing about code is it actually does a lot of things. Turns out you can actually do plenty of stuff using a computer, and then, not only is there not really learning code, it's like there's a bunch of languages, and then each of the languages probably has different ways of doing stuff with it, different kinds of stuff you can do with it. All of that comes with its own, like, set of complexities, basically. It's like, no way, I know. I know, I am known for just absolutely shocking revelations like that. It's like, you can do a lot of stuff with code while streaming to a goddamn website. You shade on your color layers. Well, to be frank, worst case scenario, I absolutely mess it up. And if I do absolutely mess it up, I'll just revert to the previously, used flat color and start over again. It's not a massive problem, because as long as I kind of keep the shape of the layer, it's fine. Especially with the way I do it, because I really like pixelated brushes, so this is all just, no anti-aliasing on this whatsoever, it's just pixels. So I can very easily bucket fill stuff, I can very easily swap colors. Quite like doing it this way. And also the style, like, it's not really showing at this resolution because this is like 4K, the entire canvas, but in general, I quite like the look of, a pixelated brush. And also, it's a great excuse to never learn how to use brushes properly. So there's also that. Well, you know what? I don't think shading on color layers inherently takes skill. I think it maybe takes a bit of getting used to. It does wonders. What do you mean it does wonders? I think I might not be getting the context of that message. Alright, what's the next step? Do I try and figure out how to shade this next, or do I add a bit more? My brush, well, it is literally a pixelated circle, and then I have a pixelated hexagon. No, that's also a circle. Apparently I messed this brush up, but I have figured out how to make a brush like this, which is pixelated, but it's a bit rough around the edges, So there's some innovation in here. It's coming up very slowly, but you know what? Out of all the options, I don't know if you can even see it on stream if I open this menu, but no, you definitely can't because it opens in a modal. But the sheer number of settings that exist in the brush screen, it's like, you know what? Maybe I'll learn to shade first, and then I'll get into brushes later. Because I feel like I'm a bit more, if I get the basics, I can always upgrade to a better brush. I'm a pixelated circle. Damn, you got me. You really got me. Look, this is my self-portrait. I suppose, okay, here's my self-portrait. We can maybe add like two pixelated circles and a smile. There you go. That's a full black. That's not what you should do if you want to have that look good, but I didn't. I was not thinking about it at all. Right, let's give this guy like a hair color. Where is beard? Well, that was a low budget drawing, low resolution, you know. We didn't quite have the budget for like 3 more dots to so to pretend to be a beard there, you know. Unfortunately, you know, recent times are hitting all of us hard. Can't exactly spend all of that budget willy-nilly on such unnecessary things as adding beards, you know. Just okay. Now, is this a good hair color? This is light brown. It doesn't have basically any contrast with anything else again, but that's kind of the point. Circle has no beard. This guy has a stash. That's something, right? I kind of like this. I kind of like this color. After debating with myself for a couple seconds, seeing what it looks like, I kind of like this hair color. Maybe just needs a bit of work. It's also gonna secretly I'm not rich. That's the second plot twist. You can't throw these at me at that velocity. I'm gonna fall over and injure myself, and then I'm gonna demand reparations once again. Okay, what's up with this hand? This hand is missing a thumb, that's why it looks weird. Now, how do I fix that? Well, I could just introduce that and then cut it where the plot begins. R.I.P. Yeah, R.I.P. You're gonna be saying R.I.P. when you see your bank account after that. Huh? Got him. Maybe. Please type 1 in the chat if I got you. Dude. This can't be the same color as the hair. But I think it can stay as a line. It just needs to be thick enough. No. 1 3. That just keeps piling on the plot twists. I'll never keep up with that. It's impossible. Okay, well, let's mirror this guy for a moment and see if he still looks alright. Maybe just move this a bit, and I think that's pretty good. Maybe I'll shave his face a little bit, not the stash, the face itself, you know, just cut it a little bit. No, this is starting to look bad, so maybe I won't quite do that. You know what? It's because his face is behind the plant. That's why it looks weird, and the solution to that is actually going to be to trim the plant instead of his face. So consider your face saved, and I shall erase the leaf I've drawn and draw it a bit again in a bit of a different place, and maybe a second one to compensate for the real estate that the old one no longer actually takes up. This plant pot also needs a bit of a shape change because it's too round. Needs to be a bit more flat for this to work. That's much better. And okay, I think it's about time to do the inevitable, which is to think about how the hell am I gonna shade this thing. Now, the flat colors on this are one thing, but then figuring out, so there's basically 2 things I need to figure out. I need to figure out where is the light coming from, which for me, I always default to this direction. But in this case, you'd probably want it to be coming from somewhere above, first of all, and second of all, you probably don't want to have it be, you know, sharp shades, Because presumably this guy's somewhere at an airport, and airports are usually fairly well lit, you know. Go for the right, yes, yeah. I'm thinking this is gonna be the light direction, definitely. But then, in terms of, you know, this presents an interesting issue because I am shading with a brush that doesn't do gradients, and I'm trying to do soft shadows. Is that massively stupid? Perhaps, but I think I can make it work, so we'll give it a shot. So I'm thinking I'm basically gonna start establishing two layers, two kind of strengths of shadow. There's gonna be places that are gonna be shaded pretty dark. Give him some fly shoes. Well, currently he doesn't even really have shoes. He's like, his legs are integrated with his trousers. But maybe I could get some area in here to just think about not trousers, shoes. Where's the layer? I should probably name those layers. I think I'll bite the bullet and do it now. You know what? I'm liking this. It just can't be the same color as that. Let's just give him shoes the same color as his hat. How's that? Or maybe we should give him actually... You know what? Maybe we should do it like this. And then bucket fill. And this shoe is completely invisible. That's better. That's more like the color I actually wanted to go for. I think that looks good. And then we're gonna figure out... Probably later we're gonna figure out how to actually, you know, how to actually stylize these quote-unquote shoes. You know what? One thing I could do is I could have them actually have a separate shoe from... Have the shoe be slightly separate from the trousers. How's that for an idea? I know, I'm just overflowing with just absolute genius today. That's what that is, clearly. Okay, we're gonna do that. Get him in here. Does this even look better? That's the thing. Because I don't think it does. It's probably something I messed up about the original. Probably something to do with either the perspective or the way that these pants actually now need a bit more in terms of how they look to actually facilitate there being a shoe. Because I kind of didn't make the original with the shoe in mind, but I can fit that into the plan, surely. You know, just get some more, get it shaped like there's actually cloth there that is on top of the shoe, and I think this already looks a bit better. And then just repeat it for the other side as well. Shorten his foot a bit. Certainly doesn't need that long. That is very broken English, but I frankly don't quite have the brain power at the moment to understand exactly why. I just got the feeling that the sentence I've just said is probably wasn't probably formulated the best, which is one way to say I absolutely butchered it. What do you think of this idea, Mr. You know, fly ass kicks? How do you feel about this leg update? I feel like it looks better than it looked before. But now the sweater, I've noticed, is actually wrong. So look, this sweater is like kinda, that it's already better. And then maybe something like that. Yep. I'm thinking this is an improvement, and maybe sink the middle bit a bit down. It does look good. There we go. Fly ass kicks expert has spoken. This guy has certified fly ass kicks. Currently untextured. You know, work in progress on those, but oh yeah, I was supposed to name layers. Which I've reminded myself of that because I once again was looking at a list of layers and realizing I don't know where anything is. And I can't know because, well, I could remember the position of... You shouldn't have said fly ass cakes. Well, You know, you gotta kick something. I don't even want to think about what a fly ass looks like, honestly. A thought briefly came into my head, but I decided to shove it out as soon as possible. Okay, so this is succulent down. This is succulent front, and this is gonna be succulent back. And this one is hands. Yeah, hand, totally. This one is the this one is the vines, I suppose. This one's the sweater. This one's the bonsai primary layer. Bonsai secondary, I guess bonsai branches. And this is bonsai trunk. And this is bonsai leaves. Please tell me that was a joke. I don't know what was a joke. So I've already lost context. I'm too busy renaming layers. This is eyes. This is hair. This is face. And this one is pant. How a fly ass would look like. What do you mean, a joke? Of course that was a joke. It is also something I really don't want to think about ever again. At all, in the slightest. Right, we've got layers named. There's no excuse to slack off. So let's try and establish some shaders, shall we? First of all, alpha lock, so I don't mess up the layers. Somebody's calling me. Hold on, I might need to let somebody into the house. I'll be back in a hot second. Now that's a certified I went out the house, locked the door, and forgot the keys moment. Well, locked the door is not true, but anyway. Have you thought more about the conversation about paying attention? Kind of. I've kind of been thinking about how to. Now that's something nobody else is gonna get when I start talking about that. Hot second, get it because it's summer. Buddy. Now you've made me acutely aware of how hot it is in my room, and I hate you for it. How dare you? Wait, I've actually kind of made the shading call. Certified KIA moment. I do not know what KIA stands for. Am I about to be lectured about another culture reference I'm not aware of? Maybe. Anyway, it's like, how do you the kind of, you know what? One thing I've definitely thought about is I should probably post the video to the talk I did to more people, so I can get a bit more opinions on it. Because I'm still, still trying to figure out. I'm basically convinced it's got some value in there, but you know what? I'd gladly get a bit more perspective on it. Kia, it's a car brand. Okay, yeah. It's killed in action, retard. Well, I was aware of Kia the car. This has been a certified. No, I cannot understand why you would possibly. They are Korean. In attempt. This. I can't. the my brain has just thrown an error while trying to actually pronounce that message, so I'm not going to. I can't. It is not possible. Ooh. Anyway, so I think I'm gonna post that to like more people, get some more feedback. But I was thinking about how do I exactly get people out of this, out of this consumption mindset where you just you just keep consuming and consuming and consuming information and then just never exit this kind of loop. Or maybe you only exit the shallow consumption loop only when there's something you absolutely need to do. So the thoughts about exiting that, there's certainly been a lot of thinking. Because I've been bouncing these ideas of other people as well. It's like there's definitely a thought about that's like this lack of understanding. You could watch on information on what to do, probably. But I'm also, I'm also kind of thinking about stuff. God damn it. That's what I get for reading chat. I no longer have a train of thought. Basically. Oh, I just understood what joke you were making. I'm... Dude, no way. You got me with that. I got one of those jokes before. Man, no, I've been obliterated. I can no longer think. This is basically that's basically how almost anything good, anything you do with people, that's basically how it falls, is when enough of the people in your population, so like in the thing you are doing, in the in the thing you are engaging with, in a community you are in, if enough of those people are taking the original, what they came for granted, and stop understanding where it all comes from, and how it relates, how to keep it, how to maintain it. That's basically how you get it's gone, basically. Like as soon as that is like a lot of people in the place you care about, well, goodbye. You can say goodbye to it. It's probably over. So then, like, how to engage people? There's something about, there's basically like two things, right? You've got a certain motivational force that is, I feel bad if I don't do this, which it could be, it's something like, I've definitely have this myself, where I can't often let something go if I don't feel like it's of high enough quality, because I'll just feel bad if I don't bring it up to a standard I'd like. That's one way of motivation, and the other is to invoke an interest in people, as in, like, oh, this is something you could do, and this is interesting, and this is yields results you might like if you engage with it. But the problem with the second is it's not easy to compete for that feeling. Shut up, bro. It's not easy to compete for the feeling, because at the end of the day, the motivation is some sort of feeling, whether you like it or not. It's mostly about, if you feel you want to do something, that's when you are gonna do it. And then, there's the most effective way of getting yourself to do something is to make yourself feel a certain way towards it. It's like, you know, for example, presenting the situation to yourself as more urgent, or something like that. It's gonna. What is this broken train of thought? You know, listen, I am usually horrible at doing two things at once, and two things at once in this case is drawing and speaking. And now I've added a third on top, which is trying to actually formulate a fairly complex subject I've been thinking about recently into into something coherent. So, you know, part of it might be that, you know, English is not my first language, but part of it might also be that I'm just having a hard time formulating stuff on the go while also drawing. You know, bear with me, please. Maybe I probably, if I'd like to formulate those ideas, I should either do what I did the first time. So, the first time what I did is just I've written stuff out, essentially. So I've just, you know, you look funny. You should try talking normally and see if that helps. Okay, I'll try my best. I've never tried it before, but you know what? Possible. So the way I've done it the first time is I've basically, you know, opened up a diagram, and I've opened up a text document, and I've opened up a, God forbid, for an IT person, a paper notebook, and I've just, you know, I've been writing stuff in it. Just everything that comes to mind, I've been writing down, and then after that, I brought it into a bunch of software, a piece of software I have called Flying Logic, which is really good for organizing your thoughts, basically. And then I've kind of, you know, arranged it, I've connected stuff up. Stuff like that is, I've basically been, so it's like basically a whole process of getting from, you know, random feelings and thoughts to something that can be conveyed to other people reliably. And then, you know, turns out it's actually not that easy to replicate while also drawing at the same time and doing something else and talking. It's like, you know, it's kind of how the first draft basically never comes out exactly how. The first draft is basically never the best, aside from certain special circumstances when you get lucky, and you know, something comes out of the process that you maybe haven't even expected how good it's gonna be, and you're just shocked. But then consciously, this doesn't exactly happen with thoughts you want to actually argue. The drawing is coming to life. Yeah, I'm kind of, it's becoming 3D, at least more 3D than it was before. So you know what? We're doing it. This might also not be circumstance to do it in. Now, the problem is, by asking that question, you've now presented me with a challenge, and my hopelessly autistic brain really wants the challenge. But I have a slight feeling what I've presented for the past couple minutes is probably not a good sample of thoughts. It's more like and then half-finished sentences stacked on top of one another. That's probably not the most pleasant to listen to, although I don't actually know that. But anyway, point is, there was some thinking done on it, so, you know, I might be... One conclusion is, after the stream ends, I'm gonna just post the 40 minutes I've recorded originally and just see if anyone's interested in that, you know, and then maybe I'll do some kind of episode 2 to that if I gather enough thoughts to actually put to words. It's like that. It's the first time that something like that's happened to me, where I've just watched a video and I was like, well, I need to do something about this. And I really was not expecting that when I initially clicked on a video titled "The Way I Think About TF2 is Changing," and you know, I would have never expected if you asked me before opening the video. I would have never expected that it's gonna be, you know, that's gonna make me think about much less about anything deeper, like anything psychological, whatever you wanna call these thoughts. It's like I would have never expected that, and now, yet here we are. You know, I've basically spent a whole week thinking about stuff that kind of originated from around that video and also other thoughts. Also, funny experience too, as well. I've never done it before. As in, you know, of course it sounds funny because, well, I've never thought before, but I've never really organized my thoughts in a way like this, where I just sat down for a really long while. You know, no distractions, no music, no nothing. And I had plenty of time because I was on vacation, so I was just able to, you know, pour some genuine condensed thinking into something. It's quite fun. But maybe that's just me being autistic once again. Who knows? I assume normal people, perfectly normal people, also like thinking from time to time. Like, I'm not gonna, you know, go that hard with hatred of normal people. Or I feel like it would be rude to say that I assume that of someone. But then again, it's like, well, it's all weird, you know? It's like, it's all new to me, and, you know, because I've been I've been basically a consumer of various kind of thought content for years. It feels a bit weird to be kind of on the other side on that. Like, this time I'm actually putting thoughts out, and I've definitely gained a lot of respect for people who actually do scripted videos of that sort, and not only scripted but unscripted as well, who like prepare, you know, those thoughts and then put them out. It's like, first of all, it takes a bunch of time to actually form an opinion into something you can share with people, you know, in an understandable way, and also entertaining. Like, it's not easy to do. Then you have to record it, maybe record it twice. Then you can, and at the end of it, you know, you might not even be sure if it's anything like important, if it's of any value to people. And there's a lot of, there's like not only a lot of effort that goes into it, but there's also, you're taking a risk essentially, especially in the modern climate of everyone being pissed about basically everything. It's like, you know, it's a bit, you're putting yourself out there. You never know what kind of person is gonna find it and react to it. But then on the other hand, if you just have ideas in your head and you don't, thinking is new to you, that explains a lot. I think you were a bit behind on the stream, but yeah, yeah, that explains a lot. Oh, god damn it! I need to get out of the habit of reading chat in the middle of saying things. I really do. Because I glance over, I see something, and it just, you know that meme of that like crying face emoji just falling into dust. That is my train of thought when I encounter a single chat message I have not read before. It's really bad. Anyway, actually, I think I was saying that at the end of the day, you never know if what you actually come up with, you never know until you actually. Oh yeah, what I know what I was talking about. I was talking about like, what good is this brilliant idea you have if you've not actually done the work to present it to people. This is, I've made it totally flat and it shouldn't be, so I'm gonna have to undo this and think about the material because I hid the sketch. So like, you can have what to you in your own head seems like the most brilliant idea ever, but then, well, until you actually like form it into something you can share with people, then how good is that idea? Well, you won't know because you've not shared it with people. And generally, like, the human brain has this funny tendency to kind of figure things out, like figure out a workaround. So even if your thinking isn't the most solid, your brain might have figured out a shortcut that can, make it function in that environment, even if your thinking is skewed. And then you yourself, like the conscious you, might not even notice that your brain has done that, and then you end up with ideas, but I thought this was obvious to everyone, and it's only obvious to you because you've gotten into the habit of believing it's true inside of your head. Which is certainly, confronting it with reality helps. Like, if you can build something in reality based on the thoughts, then you can kind of figure out if it's an accurate thought or not, if it makes sense. Because probably if it lets you accomplish something in reality, and that something is pretty good, then most likely you've stumbled onto something that is, accurate. And then confronting it with other people, because other people are not gonna have the assumptions built in that you do. So, for example, the minus, if you do maths, the one minus you just keep overlooking because you're used to it. Somebody else might come along and be like, "Oh, why is there a minus here?" And then you're like, "Well, oh, there is a minus here, isn't there?" I want to keep all that you say in my brain, but it's much. Well, the problem is it's not fitting in my brain either, so I'm just throwing it out, and that's the problem. My monkey brain can't comprehend. Well, to be fair, like, I've clearly not prepared this for people to follow. I'm just doing this off the cuff, so, if there's something to be gained from this, is that, what, like, figuring things out beforehand and then condensing it and rearranging it and making sure it's well understandable by others, pretty important. No way you say you not only cannot comprehend, but you've been actively gambling the whole time, brother. What is wrong with you? I've wasted 18 euros on cases. I am not happy with that news. Money was from a refunded game. Well, there's things you could do with that money. For example, you could keep it until you want to buy another game, and then, you wouldn't have to waste it on cases. I know, I actually, although kind of, you know what, I could say thank you for your service, because thanks to people like you who buy cases, I don't know if you bought the case, but probably did. So thanks to people like you, I no longer have to actually buy games on Steam. Like, for a long while now, what I've been doing is anytime I get a case in CS:GO, I sell it on the community market, and I've bought several games on sale, just using the money I've gotten from that. So, you know what? Your gambling addiction might be paying for someone else's game collection. So, keep at it. That's what I'm gonna say about that. Okay, there we go. I'm adding a bit of seams to the pant. Now the problem is this kind of requires me to understand pants, which is, not that easy a job to do. Now, pants, pretty complicated. 90% of gamblers quit just before they win big. This is true. Please keep buying cases from me. I am just a poor Europol who cannot afford games normally, and therefore I must ask you to keep gambling so I can buy more video games. A sentence I never thought I would hear. Well, keep gum. I need to understand pants better. Well, you know what? If you at this point don't expect such brilliant nuggets of wisdom from my streams, I honestly don't know if you've been listening the whole time. I'll have you know, only the highest quality thoughts go from my brain at every given moment of any stream. Such as, I need to understand pans better. A certified classic banger. Oh, okay. So now what I've kind of done, hello again indeed. Today we are doing a man with plants. What I've kind of been doing instead of shading is I've started adding texture to the articles of clothing. So now I'm kind of just, you know, thinking about if this looks better or worse. Some sort of RPG. What do you mean by that? If you mean where the inspiration for this drawing comes from, it's from a guy who's said that he's gonna be bringing like some plants to his new house, and he's doing so by bringing them to an airport in his suitcase and pockets. Looks like an RPG. You mean like, doesn't RPG stand for rocket propelled grenade? Am I stupid for thinking that? Weapons experts educate me. I know we've got at least 2 in the chat, certainly. I know you mean a role-playing game, but this is not from a role-playing game. This is real life. We've gone beyond RPGs. Yeah, sure. You know what? These pants work well enough for me. I'm gonna keep them that way, and also stands for role-playing. I know, come on. Like, you can't call me, actually, you can't call me a nerd after, you know, surely if I was an absolute nerd, I would say RPG stands for role-playing game first. That's the nerd thing to say. This doesn't compute. RPG stands for really groovy party. I mean, sure, delivered at a high velocity, you know, and then rapidly expanding once it actually reaches the destination. You're a weapon nerd. I'm not a weapon nerd. Out of all the people in this chat and me, I am definitely not the biggest weapon nerd in here. Knowing what an RPG stands for surely doesn't qualify as weapon nerd. RPG also means a really pog game. I'm probably too old to understand this. I know what a pog is. I am aware of pog. However, compute my fist to your face, nerd. Well, I'll put it on the list of things to do, and we'll consider it later. How's that for a diplomatic political answer? You will never guess what he did next. Bomba. Bomba indeed, except it's not Bomba. Somebody ping me, why is this? Good meme. Good, well memed, sir, to reference it. Yeah, yep. Okay, hold on. Paste the attached bitmap. There you go. This is the meme. This is the meme I was sent, and I think it's very appropriate. I am that in the hoodie. Imagine the hoodie was white, and basically 1-to-1 my character. Okay. Anyway, speaking of details, let's shoe. Since this guy now has shoes, it would be Oh yeah, the shoes of course are on the pant layer because where else? Surely if I'm doing this detail, this kind of level of detail, surely I'm doing it right. Draw toes. What is wrong with you? It's not a skin, this is shoes. What kind of disgusting shoes are you thinking about? I know there are shoes that actually have toes, but that's just beyond the pale, honestly. Whoever invented shoes with toes should probably, well, I'm not gonna say that, but you should probably not design shoes again. How's that for an explanation? I'm thinking this is looking pretty swell. Don't think I'll add more detail to this. I think this is about as much detail as I'd like on it. Maybe like some line, some kind of line in here. This is actually yes. This is absolutely the little bit of detail that is needed to break up all of this flat space. Is it exactly like this though? Yep, second one should probably do it. Maybe could even do a different color in between those two to add just this tiny bit more. You know what? This stripe is actually kind of bad. Needs to be at a different angle. Maybe, or maybe a bit more flat. There's something wrong with something. There's about as far as my thinking on it has reached at this moment, but there's a problem with this. Maybe if I, you know what? First of all, I'm just gonna copy it over to the other side. And then I'm gonna mirror the image. And it absolutely just looks the same, so you know what, I'll keep it as is for now and we'll see. Also, I've not started the timer this time, but I've actually hit midnight already, which is a bit of a problem if I want to be conscious tomorrow. But we'll figure out a solution to that puzzle when we get there. For now, I'm gonna definitely draw the hat. I love getting fucked over by pay to win. Clash Royale. Are you playing a mobile game and complaining about it being pay to win? I don't know if I can even sympathize with that. I'll be honest. I cannot. Yes. You man. What did you TF2 is pay to play? What do you mean TF2 is pay to play? Unless you mean Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 is pay to play, but Team Fortress 2 isn't. It's pay to chat after some wonderful updates from our beautiful gamers at Valve headquarters. I mean, game managers ? They made it so, you know, oh no, all those bots spamming the N-word are really giving us some bad press. What will we ever do about that? You cannot do MVM, chat, call for medic, open crates, and a lot more. Well, you can't open crates without paying, certainly, but you can play without opening crates. MVM, I think you can do either community server MVM, or you can do just, you don't do tours, as in you don't get loot at the end, but you can still play the game, the mode. The no ability to call for medic is stupid, I'll definitely give you that. I wish they didn't do that, but that's a Valve moment for you. And yeah, a lot more. You can't voice chat. It sucks. You can't chat, not just voice. You just in general can't chat. There's some other stuff you can't do. Definitely, I don't remember the exact list. I think you don't get item drops if you don't have a premium status. But then, Again, if you're just starting with TF2, all you have to do is just buy a key. And then if you buy a key, you then sell it and buy all the items for the game. And then it kind of sets you up just fine. And how many times you get kicked for looking like a bot? Well, maybe if you are a looking up and spinning enthusiast. Although, to be fair, with the absolute state of TF2's bot infestation, people, including me a lot of the time, are just F1ing every vote kick. Like, maybe not literally every vote kick, but, you know, it's like, if you have to constantly kick people, or rather kick bots, kind of get into the habit of just pressing F1 whenever somebody... You get kicked, skill issue. Yep, exactly. It's like, if you were better at the game, or maybe if you were worse at the game, people still play TF2? Yes, and I am one of them. From time to time, I like to hop on the good old Team 2. I thought it was all robots. Now there's some of us still remaining. There's also the faction that is complaining about decals being in the game. Go figure. Out of all the problems in TF2, the largest is the signs, the signs that people can make in the game, and you can make funny stuff with them. That's the problem. You know, we really need a fix for that. Come on, can't have play expression. The bots can call a vote kick and F1 everyone. Well, they can F1 if there's enough bots, but at that point you just requeue. You just gotta requeue to another server because, well, what else are you gonna do? If there's enough bots to F1 instantly, you are leaving that server one way or the other, I suppose. I mean, I am joking, but the absolute state of that game is just sad, frankly. It's a classic game. I've been playing that game from like 2014 till now. Press F1 to kick door. You can't do that. The stream's gonna become very boring. You know what? What you don't realize is you've actually set up a perfect excuse to end the stream and go to bed. But I want to finish the hat first, at least. And this one I think I'm actually gonna finish, because I said I'm gonna finish the... Last time I said I'm gonna finish the scout drawing I started, but that was not very good, I'll be honest. And so I've moved on to better things. I've moved on to this one. In more than 50% of votes, we only have 2 out of 3. Well, there's supposedly there's 5 concurrent viewers. There's too many. I already feel stressed, and I'm soon going to collapse from the pressure of all the eyeballs being placed upon my silly pen maneuvers or stylus maneuvers. Where's Jimothy Methica? It's safe in a file on my hard drive somewhere. That was the secret. The only thing that still gets me to play TF2 is friendly free-to-plays just start the game. Most of the time, the free-to-plays you find that are quote-unquote friendly, a lot of the time they are just slowly processing how to press mouse 1 to shoot. It's like, oh, cool, you're friendly, haha, and then... Remember that 2 times as many eyeballs as viewers. Well, that is for a time until, you know, because you are statistically more likely to lose an eye than to gain it back. I think that kind of indicates that the number of eyeballs is actually slowly decreasing over time. made pea-based drinks like Sniper. What am I supposed to take from that? What does that even mean? Actually, don't explain that. I don't think I need to know what that means in practice. I just hope you didn't actually, serve them to anybody. It's all fine and dandy until somebody ends up with piss in his glass. Probably something you would like to avoid, generally. I've heard it doesn't give you good, like, whatever website accumulates reviews for places that sell things, like Google Maps or other place to leave reviews. If you actually did that, you are disgusting. I hope that's just a joke. Blah. Don't want to think about that, even. But I don't actually believe that's true. So that's kind of what is keeping me in hope. Practicing BFG, that's probably a game I'm not aware of. I'm gonna probably as soon as I. No, I don't want proof. I don't want to hear about it at all. Practicing BFG. God damn it! I swear it rings a bell. It's hard because the battleship model I'm using is functionally immortal to enemy ships. Well, I mean, God mode is usually not the best way to practice anything. Battlefleet Gothic. Okay, I definitely don't. This is why we can't have nice things. I'm not sure which particular part of the not very nice things you're referring to, but I'm gonna assume it's me. So you're welcome in that if it truly was supposed to be that. Wait for delivery for any model. Well, for now, you might just want to obliterate everyone. While you wait, you might just want to obliterate everyone now. I don't care about BFG Jarati. I don't want to even think about that. I don't really, no. Of course I haven't heard of BFG before. I haven't heard of anything before. I'm a brand new person. I just showed up. I'm really behind on my existence lore. I can explain. Oh boy, here comes the massively autistic explanation of a game. I'm down for it. Do it. While I'm still finishing the hat. You got some time? I am secretly deaf. This is true. True information. Thankfully, that doesn't impede my ability to speak. So, actually, I don't actually know about deaf people. Does being deaf impact your ability to speak? Like, surely it doesn't. So there's this guy called the Emperor. Okay, it's a 40k thing. Okay, in that case, we're gonna be here all night. From the very little I know about that lore. Star Wars reference. Well, okay, that's not where my thoughts gone, but I am fairly certain that yeah, that is 40k. I mean, there was an emperor in Star Wars, and then somehow he returned. Now, it's magical what a bunch of cash can do to a man. Wonders for your health. Being a profitable character in a profitable, formerly profitable franchise. Doesn't impede your ability to speak. You can't hear yourself talk, so accuracy forming words is at least diminished. Surely, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about it. But at least you can speak to a certain degree. That's surely easier communication than sign language, unless I suppose you are at a concert. or other plays that's very loud. Which actually might mean that it's kind of a good skill to have, to be able to communicate in sign language regardless of if you hate deaf people or not. Like, my primary reason is just for not learning it is just I just despise deaf people, you know. But if you wanted another reason, you could get it for $9.99. What am I talking about? I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure about this hat, but I think I've kind of accidentally done like the pattern I wanted to do. So he had 20 suns, which he wanted to use to reconquer the galaxy, I assume. Right, so the Emperor created the Primarchs with warp magic and forgotten science. Okay. Wait, I missed a step. Humanity forgot most of its progress in the Age of Darkness. Oh, God damn it. Well, I have finished the texture on the hat. So I think I'm gonna be turning the stream off fairly soon, but honestly, this looks pretty damn cool if you ask me. Is anybody asking me? Well, that's a fair question. Probably not. Spending too much time on installing. Well, I think that's kind of like the default 40k. I should do a TF2 stream someday. Well, I probably could, but if you would like to find an activity that makes me so I speak even less coherently than I already do, then probably a video game which requires a bunch of thinking on the fly is a great idea. I think that's gonna just wonderfully mesh with my general lack of ability to speak and do things at the same time. I'd like to be playing TF2 with you again. It's been like, okay, it has been a bunch of time, probably. Play and comment TF2. How late is it? Can we hop into a pub? Hold on. This is the arrow layer. Nah, I'm not. You know what? No, maybe. That is going into the ideas bin. I might do that at some point. For now, I'm gonna go off the stream because it is almost said midnight 15, but I know that bothers you, so I'm gonna say no, a quarter past midnight over here. So I am going to be departing to Sleepland. I'm very happy with this though. This harvest map is the best. Nah, I'm an upward enjoyer. I like maps on which there are slopes, because slopes, turns out, are the best gameplay feature of TF2, because you can slide on them, or rather you can slide up on them, which is, you know, it's not the most conventional use of slopes. Usually you would think you would go down a slope, but in this case, you know, I like sliding up a slope using rockets, or alternatively using yelling loudly. You have 213 achievements. You know what? I am gonna check how many I have because I'm curious, and then I'm gonna finish. Okay, well, let's see. Well, this new Steam update looking interesting. They've done gun make everything big. That was not an English sentence, I swear. TF2, I've got 342 achievements on TF2. And that's only 65% of all of them because there's 520. Absolute insanity. Next week, and I'll explain the steps I missed leading up to the existence of this guy called the Emperor. I mean, surely there's like 5,000 streams already done of like explaining Warhammer 40k lore to someone who doesn't know what is happening. Do you need to like have a flow chart at some point where you have like things coming before other things and after other things to keep track of all the things? It seems like the kind of depth that would be necessary for. You know what? Maybe this would look better with the bonsai gone. But I think the bonsai is gonna be changing color next time. I think that the pink can't stay, but you should draw a flow chart next stream. Okay, next stream is actually just gonna be, I'm not gonna be doing any regular drawing. I'm just gonna make I'm just gonna make a flow chart. Flying logic tutorial next stream. You should draw a sniper holding Girardi. You have a very weird obsession with urine. Should probably think about that deeply. Get you up to speed fast. Your immortal stream is at risk. Is that it is at high risk. I am at an I am at an incredibly high risk of ending the stream right now. This obsession, man. You probably should add Girati. You seem like the type to use Girati, the word, a lot, so you should probably add it to your phone's dictionary at this point. Unless you are doing it on purpose, in which case I do appreciate the seemingly unintentional karate at first, followed by the all caps Girati in a separate message. It's very funny. Should keep doing that. Alright, anyway, you know what? I can finally start the timer, and I suppose thank you very much for showing up to this 2 hours and 20 minutes of rambling and other sorts of nonsense, and also drawing. And I'm gonna be heading off to Dreamland. So thank you very much for showing up. This is certainly some kind of record for this channel, surely. And goodbye, good night, something like that. Bye bye.